Have you ever felt like there's a part of you working against your own dreams, goals, or even your relationships? That internal conflict, that invisible hand pulling you backward just as you're trying to move forward. It's not your imagination. It's a profound psychological phenomenon that quietly influences our lives in ways we often don't understand. According to Carl Jung, this mysterious force has its roots in a hidden part of our psyche he called the shadow. In this video, we'll dive deep into what the shadow really is, how it's intimately connected to self-sabotage, and most importantly, how embracing it can lead to genuine freedom and inner transformation. Jung described the shadow as a repository, a place within us where we store everything we repress, reject, or refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. These are traits, impulses, desires, and fears that we push out of our conscious awareness because they conflict with the ideal image we try to present to the world. But here's the paradox. What we repress doesn't vanish. It doesn't disappear into the void. It hides in the unconscious, subtly shaping our thoughts, reactions, relationships, and decisions, often to our own detriment. To truly understand the shadow, we must first accept a difficult truth. We are not as self-aware as we like to believe. Our identity isn't a fixed, singular self. Jung believed the human psyche is layered, composed of the conscious ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. The shadow resides within the personal unconscious and contains everything we find unacceptable, shameful, or threatening. Not only negative qualities like jealousy, rage, or arrogance, but also positive traits like ambition, confidence, or assertiveness, if those qualities were deemed wrong in our upbringing. Imagine someone raised in an environment where humility was excessively praised. Over time, that person might learn to associate ambition with selfishness or pride. As a result, they repress their drive to succeed, burying it deep in the shadow. Yet that buried ambition doesn't vanish. It lingers beneath the surface and often returns in the form of self-sabotage, quiet, persistent actions that prevent success or undermine progress. This is where the connection between the shadow and self-sabotage becomes clear. When we avoid confronting our shadow, it doesn't go away. It gains power. It's like carrying an invisible backpack filled with unmet needs, denied emotions, and repressed fears. Without realizing it, we act from this weight. For instance, someone who fears failure but refuses to acknowledge that fear might unconsciously procrastinate, make excuses, or abandon their goals just before success is within reach, ensuring they never have to face that fear directly. Our relationships also reflect the shadow's influence. Jung observed that we often project our shadow onto others. That means we see in others the qualities we refuse to see in ourselves. You might harshly criticize someone for being selfish, not realizing that you too have selfish tendencies you've refused to accept. These projections distort how we see others and lead to unnecessary conflict, often creating emotional distance between us and the people we care about. The first step in breaking free from self-sabotage is to bring the shadow into the light. This is no easy task. It requires a kind of honesty most people avoid their whole lives. Jung emphasized that shadow work demands courage, a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we've spent years avoiding. Some powerful questions to begin uncovering your shadow include: what qualities do I most often criticize in others? Which parts of my personality do I feel ashamed of or uncomfortable with? What emotions or situations do I instinctively avoid? Reflecting on these questions can reveal hidden patterns of self-sabotage, For example, you may find you constantly put yourself down, never feeling good enough. Upon deeper reflection, you might discover there's a part of you that actually fears success because, at a core level, you believe you don't deserve it. This belief doesn't live in your rational mind. It lives in your shadow, and until you confront it, it will keep showing up. Jung didn't believe the shadow should be destroyed. Instead, he taught that the shadow must be integrated, accepted as a part of who you are. Integration doesn't mean acting out your impulses or indulging your worst traits. It means recognizing their existence and learning from them. When you embrace your shadow, the energy you once used to suppress it becomes available for creative, conscious action. The integration process happens in stages. First, awareness, the realization that the shadow exists and has been influencing your life. Second, observation, the practice of noticing your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors without judgment. Third, acceptance, understanding that these traits are part of you and not inherently bad or shameful. Finally, transformation, using this awareness to make better choices, ones that align with your authentic self rather than your fear-driven ego. Jung also saw dreams as one of the most direct pathways to the shadow. He believed that through symbols, archetypes, and strange narratives, dreams reveal aspects of ourselves we're blind to during waking life. Keeping a dream journal can be a powerful tool for shadow work. For instance, if you frequently dream about being lost in a dark forest, that could represent feelings of confusion or alienation caused by repressed parts of your psyche. Interpreting these dream symbols can help you identify what your conscious mind refuses to face. The shadow doesn't just affect your inner world, it influences your decisions, often in destructive ways. When you're unaware of its presence, it operates like a hidden script, directing your actions from behind the scenes. You might repeatedly choose romantic partners who mistreat or manipulate you and wonder why the same painful patterns keep happening. But from a Jungian perspective, those patterns may be your shadow's attempt to bring unresolved wounds, like fear of abandonment or low self-worth, into your awareness. Painful, yes, but also necessary, because until you recognize the shadow, it will continue repeating these lessons, louder and more intensely each time. One of Jung's most powerful insights was that what we refuse to face within ourselves inevitably shows up in the people around us. When we repress certain traits, we begin to see them everywhere. You might find yourself annoyed by someone who seeks attention, not realizing that you've buried your own need for validation because you were taught it was wrong. This projection becomes a kind of trap, keeping you focused on the flaws of others while ignoring your own internal disconnection. To overcome self-sabotage, you must dismantle these projections. This means asking difficult questions. What exactly bothers me about this person? Could that be a reflection of something I haven't accepted in myself? These are not comfortable questions, and the ego, the conscious self that wants to maintain a consistent identity, will resist them. But they are necessary for deep healing and self-knowledge. Jung described the ego as the part of the psyche that creates a stable sense of self. It's the mask we wear to function in society. While necessary, the ego also fears change. It seeks safety in routine and consistency, even if that consistency is painful. Self-sabotage occurs when the ego feels threatened by your growth. You may consciously want success, but if your ego associates success with rejection, exposure, or failure, it will do everything it can to stop you, often in subtle and unconscious ways. The ego also helps suppress the shadow, because acknowledging the shadow would mean rewriting the story the ego tells about who you are. This is why shadow work can feel so destabilizing, but it's also why it's transformative. To stop sabotaging your life, you must allow the shadow to emerge, to challenge the ego's narrative, and replace it with a more complete and honest understanding of yourself. Jung called this lifelong journey of inner integration, individuation. It is the process of becoming whole, of embracing every part of your psyche, not just the light, but also the darkness. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. It's about living in alignment with your full truth instead of constantly hiding, pretending, or overcompensating. This process dissolves self-sabotage at the root because it replaces fear with authenticity. Individuation demands introspection, self-inquiry, and a willingness to let go of illusions. You begin to see beyond the masks you wear and embrace the duality within, the light and the shadow, the creator and the destroyer, the confident and the insecure. It means making choices that align with your deeper self, even when they're uncomfortable or unfamiliar. Although the path is challenging, there are practical tools to support this work. Journaling is one of the most accessible. Use writing to explore your inner landscape. Ask yourself, what are my deepest fears? What situations make me feel powerless? How do I react to criticism? And what does that reveal about me? These reflections open the door to awareness. Another essential tool is therapy, especially Jungian analysis or other depth-oriented modalities. A trained therapist can help you navigate the complexities of your shadow, guiding you with compassion and insight as you face the aspects of yourself that feel difficult or unacceptable. Jung encouraged working with a therapist who could help uncover unconscious patterns and projections. This process can be profoundly transformative, as it allows one to unravel the roots of self-sabotage and build a healthier relationship with oneself. Dream work, as mentioned before, serves as a gateway to the unconscious. Recording and reflecting on your dreams can reveal hidden aspects of your shadow and assist in integrating them. Meditation and visualization are practices that help you connect with your inner world and observe your thoughts without judgment. One effective technique involves visualizing your shadow as an external figure and engaging it in dialogue, asking what it needs from you. Creative expression, whether through art, music, writing, or any other form, becomes a powerful tool for exploring and releasing the shadow's energy. The benefit of integrating the shadow is that once acknowledged, it releases an immense amount of energy that was previously locked in repression and inner conflict. This reduces self-sabotage and allows you to live with greater authenticity, creativity, and confidence. Jung stated that when the shadow is integrated, it becomes a source of strength and insight. Rather than fearing your flaws or weaknesses, you begin to view them as opportunities for transformation and inner growth. Ultimately, overcoming self-sabotage doesn't mean eliminating your problems. It means changing how you relate to them. By accepting and working with your shadow, you become the architect of your life, rather than a passive observer. Shadow integration not only helps us overcome self-sabotage, but also leads us to unlock a hidden inner power. Jung believed that confronting and embracing the shadow releases energy that can be transformed into creativity, intuition, and deep wisdom. However, this path is not without its challenges, as it requires facing parts of ourselves that we've long avoided. The shadow often reveals itself most clearly in our personal relationships. Jung pointed out that projecting the shadow onto others is one of the main causes of conflict. When we project repressed parts of ourselves, we create dynamics that reinforce our suffering and self-sabotage. Instead of recognizing these projections, we reject the mirror others present to us, and this prolongs the tension. Integrating the shadow in relationships means taking ownership of our projections. This demands a level of honesty that may feel uncomfortable, but it's essential for building authentic and meaningful connections. Some helpful questions to explore these projections include: what traits in others evoke discomfort or rejection? How might these traits reflect something in me I haven't accepted? What is this relationship teaching me about my shadow? When you begin to see others as mirrors of your inner world, relationship dynamics begin to shift. You stop blaming others and start taking responsibility for your emotions and reactions. The impact of the shadow also extends to our ambitions and dreams. Self-sabotage affects not just relationships, but also our ability to realize goals. The shadow often shows up as fear of success, procrastination, or harsh self-criticism, ways we unconsciously protect ourselves from what we perceive as threatening. Although we may consciously desire achievement, the shadow may hold a deep-rooted fear of not being worthy or capable, blocking action and motivation. Jung suggested that the only way to overcome these internal obstacles is to confront fear directly. This means identifying the hidden beliefs that fuel self-sabotage and questioning them. What stories do I tell myself about my worth or abilities? How might I be using self-sabotage as a defense mechanism? Once these beliefs are uncovered, they can begin to shift. This doesn't mean ignoring fear, but rather engaging with it compassionately and curiously. Jung spoke of finding gold in the shadow, a metaphor for the positive potential hidden in our repressed aspects. While the shadow is often associated with darkness, it also contains gifts, talents, and qualities we've buried because they didn't align with our conscious identity. For example, someone who suppressed their creativity because it was deemed impractical may discover powerful artistic abilities when reconnecting with their shadow. Another person may find hidden strength in their ability to set boundaries or express assertiveness, even if those traits once felt unacceptable. To uncover the gold in your shadow, reflect on the parts of yourself you've rejected or dismissed. Ask yourself, what parts of me have I hidden out of fear of judgment or disapproval? What talents or desires have I neglected because they didn't seem useful or acceptable? How can I start bringing these qualities into my life constructively? This kind of exploration liberates you from the cycle of self-sabotage and unlocks a higher level of personal potential. The shadow also plays a role in spirituality, the process of transformation. Jung saw shadow work not just as psychological, but also as a spiritual journey. Integrating the shadow is a way to return to wholeness, to unify our internal polarities and live more authentically. From this lens, self-sabotage isn't a problem to eliminate, but an invitation to explore our depths and reconnect with our essence. Jung once said, "There is no awakening of consciousness without pain." People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Enlightenment doesn't come from imagining light, but from making darkness conscious. The path to illumination requires confronting what we avoid. Instead of running from fear or imperfection, we must face them directly and understand what they're asking of us. Cultivating self-acceptance is key. recognizing that we are complex beings made of both light and shadow, and that it's okay to be imperfect. Seeking balance is not about acting on every repressed impulse, but about acknowledging and integrating all aspects of who we are. It's about creating inner harmony. Transforming self-sabotage into self-leadership involves more than resolving inner conflict. It's about becoming the conscious guide of your own life. When we stop fleeing from our shadows, we gain the clarity and confidence to make choices aligned with our authentic self. A crucial step in this process is redefining success and failure. When success is no longer about meeting external standards, but about inner alignment, the fear of failing begins to lose its power. The shadow no longer needs to protect you from imagined threats. Instead, you begin to see challenges as invitations to evolve, and failure, rather than something to fear, becomes a valuable teacher. The shift from self-sabotage to self-leadership is a process of reclaiming your personal power. The energy once trapped in suppression now becomes available for creation, purpose, and conscious action. You begin to write your own story, not by denying your wounds, but by allowing them to become your source of strength. By acknowledging, accepting, and integrating the shadow, you don't just overcome sabotage, you awaken the true self. You stop living under the weight of unconscious fears and begin to walk your path with presence, authenticity, and clarity. That is the journey Jung invited us to walk, a return to wholeness, where every part of us, even the most hidden, has a place in the light. Jung believed that many of our internal struggles stem from external expectations that don't align with our inner truth. By working with the shadow, we can redefine what success truly means according to our own values and desires. Another essential step is cultivating presence. The shadow largely operates from the past, traumas, fears, and learned patterns, and projects these elements into the future. Through conscious presence, we break this cycle and reclaim the power of the present moment. Overcoming self-sabotage is neither quick nor easy, but it's one of the most transformative acts a person can undertake. When you engage with your shadow, you don't just free yourself from limiting patterns, you also access a more authentic and powerful version of who you are. Jung left us with an invaluable guide for this journey. His teachings about the shadow remind us that we are neither entirely good nor entirely bad. We are whole beings who must embrace every part of ourselves to live fully. If something you've heard here resonates with you, it's because you're ready to begin this path. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your ally in the process of self-discovery. As Jung once said, a life not lived is a disease from which one can die. Don't let self-sabotage steal your chance to truly live. Now that you hold the key to transforming your relationship with yourself, what steps will you take to integrate your shadow? Leave a comment and share this message with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, transformation starts with you, but its impact reaches far beyond. The path of integrating the shadow is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process that demands commitment and daily self-exploration. In this section, we'll explore specific practices you can incorporate into your life to remain connected with your shadow and effectively overcome self-sabotage. First, conscious observation of your thoughts and emotions. One of the most direct ways to work with the shadow is to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment. The key here is curiosity, not criticism. Every emotion that arises, even the ones we label as negative, is a window into our shadow. Practice sitting in silence for 5 minutes each day, simply observing your thoughts. Ask yourself, what thoughts make me uncomfortable or hard to accept? What emotions do I tend to avoid or suppress? How might these emotions be linked to something unresolved within me? It can be helpful to keep a journal to record these observations, as writing allows you to identify patterns and deepen your self-understanding. Second, engaging in internal dialogue with the shadow. Jung encouraged establishing an inner conversation with the repressed aspects of our personality. It may sound strange at first, but this is a powerful way to integrate the shadow. The idea is to treat it as a part of yourself that needs to be heard, not rejected. Practice by closing your eyes, taking deep breaths, and visualizing your shadow as a figure or energy in front of you. Ask it, what do you need from me? What are you trying to protect or express? How can I integrate you in a positive way into my life? Write down any responses that come up without judging them. You'll often discover that the shadow is not an enemy, but a part of you that longs to be understood. Third, identifying patterns of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage can manifest in many ways: procrastination, fear of success, difficult relationships, or constant self-criticism. Identifying these patterns is the first step to disarming them. Practice by listing situations where you feel you're sabotaging yourself. For each one, ask, what underlying fear might be driving this behavior? What do I gain from maintaining this pattern, even if it seems negative? What could I do differently next time? This will help you recognize how your shadow is influencing your actions and empower you to make more conscious choices. Fourth, using creativity as a channel of expression. Creativity is a powerful tool for exploring and releasing the energy of the shadow. Jung believed that art, writing, music, and other forms of creative expression can reveal aspects of our psyche that aren't accessible through rational thought. Practice dedicating time to a creative activity without worrying about the result. It might be drawing, writing poetry, playing an instrument, or anything else that draws your interest. While creating, pay attention to the themes or emotions that arise. Ask yourself, what is this piece showing me about myself? What aspects of my shadow are being expressed here? You don't need to be a professional artist. What matters is allowing yourself to explore freely, without judgment. Fifth, recognizing external triggers. Triggers are situations or people that provoke intense emotional reactions in us. These moments are opportunities to work with the shadow, as they often reflect something repressed within. Practice by pausing the next time you feel a strong emotional response to someone or something. Reflect. What is causing this reaction? What part of me might be reflected in this situation? How can I respond in a way that honors my integration process? When you approach triggers with curiosity rather than reactivity, you begin to dismantle the unconscious patterns that fuel self-sabotage. Sixth, embracing imperfection. A major part of self-sabotage stems from unrealistic expectations we hold about ourselves. Jung believed that accepting our imperfect nature is essential to individuation. The shadow won't disappear entirely, but we can learn to live in harmony with it. Practice by listing what you consider your flaws and reflect on how they might serve a positive purpose in your life. For instance, if you think you're too sensitive, consider how that sensitivity allows you to deeply connect with others. If you view yourself as impulsive, think about how that trait has led you to take brave actions in the past. Accepting your imperfections doesn't mean resigning to them. It means recognizing that they are part of your humanity and can become strengths when embraced consciously. Seventh, practicing self-forgiveness. Self-sabotage is often tied to negative inner dialogue and a lack of compassion toward oneself. Learning to forgive yourself for your mistakes and limitations is a vital step in overcoming these patterns. Practice by reflecting each night before bed and asking yourself, what did I do well today? What could I have done differently? How can I be kinder to myself tomorrow? Speaking to yourself with compassion rather than criticism creates an inner space where the shadow can be accepted and integrated. By working with the shadow, we don't just overcome self-sabotage. We also build a life that's more authentic, balanced, and fulfilling. This process requires time, patience, and courage, but the rewards are profound. Carl Jung reminded us of a profound truth. The shadow is not our enemy. It is not a force we must eliminate or fight against. Rather, it is a vital and intrinsic part of who we are, a fragment of the psyche that longs to be seen, acknowledged, and ultimately integrated. To reject the shadow is to reject a part of ourselves. But when we choose to face it, when we dare to look into that hidden, often uncomfortable territory within, we begin to break free from the destructive patterns that have silently governed our lives. These patterns might manifest as self-doubt, emotional reactivity, fear of intimacy, or cycles of self-sabotage that keep us from achieving our fullest potential. And while they may feel like external obstacles, many of them are rooted in the unacknowledged parts of our own inner world. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming whole. It means daring to witness ourselves without judgment, to embrace not just our strengths and light, but also our wounds, fears, and contradictions. The journey of healing and transformation begins with this radical act of self-honesty. It is not a destination to be reached overnight, but a lifelong unfolding, a continuous process of self-awareness, self-compassion, and courageous reflection. Each time we choose to meet our shadow with curiosity rather than resistance, we reclaim a part of our personal power. We begin to see that what once felt like weakness or shame was, in fact, a doorway to something deeper, something profoundly human. In doing so, we open ourselves to a new kind of connection, not just with ourselves, but with others. We begin to relate from a place of authenticity, not performance. We stop projecting our pain onto those around us, and instead take ownership of our emotional reality. This is where true inner freedom begins. Overcoming self-sabotage is not about fixing yourself, because you are not broken. It's about remembering who you are, beneath the layers of conditioning, defense mechanisms, and fear. It's about coming home to your true nature and allowing all parts of you, both light and shadow, to coexist in harmony. Integrating the shadow is an act of courage. It requires facing discomfort. It requires sitting in silence with the parts of ourselves we've avoided for years. But in that silence, something miraculous begins to happen. We stop running. We start listening. And in listening, we begin to understand. We begin to forgive. We begin to heal. If this message resonates with you, know this: you are not alone. Everyone carries a shadow. Every soul walking this earth has faced inner battles, hidden fears, and moments of despair. And yet within each of us lies the power to transform. Not by denying what we feel, but by embracing it, by witnessing it, and by allowing it to guide us toward greater awareness. Take the first step by exploring your own inner landscape. What are the stories you keep repeating to yourself? What emotions do you fear the most? What parts of you have you rejected, disowned, or silenced? These questions are not easy, but they are essential. Because as Jung so wisely said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. True transformation does not happen by pretending the darkness isn't there. It happens when we choose to bring light to it. It happens when we choose to stay with the discomfort instead of numbing it. It happens when we accept that healing is not linear and growth is not always comfortable, but both are always possible. So if you're ready to begin, start with compassion. Be gentle with yourself. Your shadow is not something to be fixed. It is something to be understood. And once you understand it, you can begin to integrate it. And once you integrate it, you unlock a depth of personal power and clarity that no external validation could ever provide. Remember, the shadow doesn't diminish your light. It gives it contrast. It gives it depth. And ultimately, it makes it real. If you've come this far, perhaps something within you is already awakening. Share this message with someone who is ready to begin their own inner journey. And in the comments, I invite you to reflect. What practices or realizations have helped you face your own shadow or break free from self-sabotage? Never forget, real change begins the moment we stop resisting and start accepting. Because, as Jung said, what you resist not only persists, it grows stronger, but what you accept transforms you.